Hey, let's go.
So to go over the agenda real quick, we'll do a little bit of intros on companion, walk through the technology, and then go into a live demo with this lovely dog Birdie and my colleague Livy. And then we'll have our fireside chat with Dr. Marty Becker, Mike McFarland, and Ken Ramirez, respectively. So to dive right into the overview, if you take nothing else away from this talk, let me say this very directly. We've created a device and a product whose sole desire in life is to enrich your dog and give your dog a better life at home every single day through enrichment, through engagement like games, and practicing things like training, which help build and supplement the human-animal bond. And through those things like training, we can do things like look for very small variants in how your animal moves, grows, holds itself, looks like, with superhuman memory, with superhuman precision that a machine gives us to help your dog look for signs of health variants over time. I couldn't be more proud that we've been working on this for 5 years, working with 1,000+ dogs now at a number of different sites, several under homes, and I couldn't be more proud to be able to start talking about it more publicly.
Can I add one thing?
Please do.
As I have a veterinary colleague, at least one here in the room with me, and we are skeptical scientists. So I tell you, if you're a science-based company, that means a lot. So yes, it's a consumer product that also is going to have professional applications. But I love the fact that you chase the science. And so I was just at UC Davis College of Veterinary Medicine. So Cornell and UC Davis always fight it out which one's the top. But I know you're doing more research there on data analysis and exciting about stuff about body condition scoring. But, you know, I'm a veterinarian. My daughter, Mikkel, who's a co-author of a book of somebody in this room right here, from Fearful to Fear Free, Dr. Lonnie Sun, boarded veterinary behaviorist. My wife's a boarded episodist therapist. And I was one of the first people to order a companion. Now, why would I order one, right? Well, I also have pet insurance. That's a whole nother story. As a veterinarian, you think that's off. But one is we give pets the time we could share and the longer we can share, the time we can spare. And my wife just fell off her horse. So she has a new puppy, and she's not going to be able to exercise that dog. You have something that never has a better offer come along. It never thinks, I'm showing it today, or I have a deadline or something, right? So stay, train the dog, play, enrichment activities. And the point I wanted to make is I'm okay. I want to be able to monitor different medical aspects of that pet. So there's a lot of consumer stuff comes out that's sizzle, right? And you guys are worried about the steak, if that makes sense. That's not my original term. Everybody said that originally, but
So I want to talk very broadly about why we got excited about companion initially, kind of the mission and vision of the company. I think that we all share this desire to better understand our dogs. And before today, we barely scratched the surface of what those dogs are already communicating. I know I'm particularly excited to do this work because I think understanding inherently drives empathy. I don't think there's any way around it. And I love the idea of creating more understanding. There's no way that machines don't help us do this with perfect patience, with infinite memory. There's no way that machines don't start helping us, picking up on all these little subtle signs from these animals we love. Essentially, we've created a device that can have a conversation with your animal for hours a day to give it a better life at home. So I think one of the basic premises of companion is that all animals primarily communicate through movement and posture. So consciously how I gesture, or the dog walking to the door needs to go outside, but there's so much unconscious communication. So how do I hold myself? Do I lean over? Do I slump? Are my facial muscles stressed? How do I favor one side of my body as I go from a sit to a down? There's so much little signal in all of that movement just for humans. Dog, let alone for animals that don't have verbal language, right? What is your dog communicating through its tail position, through its back posture slowly changing over time, through its neck posture slowly changing over time? We are inherently, we love our animals. We love them to death. We couldn't care more about these animals we love, but we don't have the capability, we don't have the education, we don't necessarily have the time to pick up on all these things, right? Machines do. They forget nothing. Like these things will give us superhuman powers. These dogs love it. I talked a little bit about, there's two facts that I think make it inescapable that machines will help us pick up on all these little signals we just described. So fact one is that all animals primarily communicate through movement and posture. Fact two is we now have all of these sensors all over the built world that have infinite patience. They have much more precision, and they have perfect memory. They're in your doorbell, they're in your car, they're in your phone, they're in your laptop. They are all over the built world, pushed out by cell phone supply chains, making these components very inexpensive. So now they're literal all over the world. And if you think about it at a high level, what that means is you now have lots of these warm bodies, lots of animals moving around, sending off signal, things we can read. And now you have all of these sensors all around the world that can much more precisely pick up on all that pattern. There's no future. There's no way in the next 10 to 20 years that all of these sensors, all of these pieces of technology don't help us dramatically deepen and widen our understanding of all these animals. So this is going to happen. I couldn't be more excited about that. Like, there's no way this doesn't. And companion is the first step in that journey. So companion can help your dog live a better life in 3 ways. One is constant, captivating enrichment throughout the day. So the idea is no more leaving your dog lonely, anxious by the door. Instead, you hear your dog from across the house having a blast to the sound of your own voice, practicing the things that make it easier to communicate throughout the day. The second piece is thoughtful, non-anxious, consistent communication, driven by practicing all of the basic training commands that help form and supplement the human-animal bond over time. Our goal with this practice is not only do you really strengthen the training and then hold it there over time. That's fantastic in its own right, but what that allows you to do is live more with your dog. Like, training naturally reduces anxiety in home, but it also means that you are more likely to feel comfortable taking your dog to that new place. You're more comfortable taking your dog to work if you have those commands are more consistent, more fresh, lower latency. And then third, as a result of all of those repetitions, companion has a massive memory of how your dog has moved over time. So how has it responded to sit? How has it changed? How it transitions from sit to down? Where we can pick up the most apparent largest variance or change, or you can pick up on the most subtle instance of something slowly changing your dog's movement that would be almost impossible for you to see. Companion doesn't miss anything. So we can help you find whether it's looking at how your animal moves its limbs over time, whether it's how your animal's body shape changes over time and its body conditions or its weight changes, or in the future thing, actually looking at coat color and a variety of other conditions that are prevalent with companion.
So there's 2 points to look at. Ken Ramirez is probably the most iconic trainer. I mean, he's like Alexis Devine, who has Bunny, has done great care stuff. Probably those of you that follow Bunny on TikTok, and we were talking about Ken Ramirez, how we're both such big fans. Everybody's in the training world. Well, not everybody has Ken Ramirez. Now, you can't go to his, not everybody go to his farm, not everybody can. So that perfect training, like the clicker training, can be done with the device. And my daughter, I had heard from Karen Pryor, who found it, has kind of a gift for that, and way more than I do or my wife does. But that's the thing, it's perfect that way. And tell me if I'm wrong. Like, number 3, this memory, you're just not comparing our little Pomeranian puppy, Quinby, but against other Pomeranian puppies. So with your artificial intelligence, you build thousands and hundreds of thousands and then millions of Pomeranians that are the same age.
Exactly. So it's not only do you get the benefit of a real-time algorithm looking at, is there kind of variance in what we see right in front of us, but you're also getting over time the benefit of looking at your dog's individual history for its changes within your specific dog compared to other dogs, similar breeds or different breeds. The idea is that with every single dog, the companion gets to see the companion algorithm where it's for. It has the ability to apply a perfect memory and a perfectly consistent set of eyes to look at your dog and look at your dog's patterns. Like, a lot of the companion experience isn't just the beautiful device that gets to that. You know, if your dog has a tongue called every day, it's not just the app that helps you with understanding what the device is doing with your dog, how your dog is doing it during the day. There's also a huge component around companion being able to observe your animal and grow with your animal over time, and storing all that data in the cloud so that we can call upon that data one day and make sure your pet is in the best health it can be.
Do you know how valuable that's going to be as a veterinarian?
Hopefully alive.
Well, Ani and I, would you love to have that? We don't have that in veterinary medicine. Just think if we could follow along 6-year-old Labrador retrievers, 10-year-old Labrador retrievers, to see what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part, that's the diagnostic part that's exciting. The predictable part, prevent problems before they occur if you can.
That's a great segue. So we worked with thousands of dogs. We worked with hundreds of owners, and I couldn't be more proud of who we have around us as friends and advisors and investors. The knowledge that Marty, Becker, that the folks in this room, that Ramirez, that Mike McFarland all represent, and my wonderful colleagues, all of that knowledge goes into each and every session you're not going to. That's one of the benefits. We don't talk about that much on our website, but the perfect consistency, like that each game, each module, each piece of practicing training, all of that knowledge, whether it's fear-free, whether it's positive reinforcement, goes into each and every time the dog engages. So in short, like to kick this off, like the one direct message, which is we're incredibly excited about what Companion can do for all of our dogs, and we invite you to join us. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit and just do a technology overview, a little bit more about the Companion product. And then after that, the next thing we have to talk is our Companion demo. So if we go to the second slide, you'll see a white dog that has some bounding boxes around it. What those bounding boxes are showing is the fact that we now have all of these low-cost AI chips. We have all of this relatively easy to use AI software that allows us to, at superhuman speed, understand what an animal is doing in front of the device, whether it's a motion, a posture. This clip is actually from 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. This is in some of the early days when we were doing relatively simple movements and postures, but this was game changing itself, because what this meant was no longer did a device need to have a connection to cloud computing or have a big delay associated with it, but it meant that now the device could react at superhuman speed. So not a 10th of a second, not a 20th of a second, but you can actually go 30th of a second, 40th of a second, 50th of a second, which is really, really valuable in training or interaction. So that not only could you observe the animal, but you could also respond back in real time. The way I think about it, it's almost having a real-time conversation with an animal. So that whether it's for engagement, whether it's for training, but there's a dialogue back and forth. Before now, we haven't had that ability because we've had almost like it's like having a bad cell phone connection where there's like a second or two delay. It's just not that interesting. It's just so hard to do. But this new technology is what enables us to do it. So this is a clip from 4 or 5 years ago, like in the very early days. And this is, if I remember correctly, a dog named Tank. The first thing we do is just make sure your dog loves the device. So essentially, we encourage the dog to come play with the device by doing like lots of fun games and treats. So your dog learns very quickly the device is friendly and to come over to the device when the light turns on, the machine starts using your voice and the default voice. And then what we do for all of these basic obedience commands is we wait to view all these behaviors that dogs will naturally do. If given enough time, they'll naturally sit down, they'll naturally go all the way down, they'll naturally look at the device. And those are all postures that I just mentioned, but they're also basic training skills, right? That's one is watch, one is down, one is sit. And then as soon as we see that behavior, we capture it. So we instantly reinforce it, superhuman speed and consistency. So that very quickly, your dog learns that every time it performs that behavior, gets rewarded. And using the same training techniques that everyone's familiar with, we associate that caller, that posture, with your own voice, a default voice, or any other signal we might use over time, which you might see like the doorbell ringing, to be able to associate that specific posture with that voice or with that sound. So I think that my colleagues have created the world's most advanced treat cannon, for lack of a better phrase. And I never thought I'd be able to say that. But essentially, this device not only has kind of the AI chip and the software running on board, so a very powerful computer in its own right, but it also has the ability to very consistently, at very low latency, place positive reinforcement, place a treat or a piece of food kibble in a 10-foot triangle in front of the device. What that means is it allows you to issue positive reinforcement very consistently, very quickly, at exactly the right posture to see. And we're pretty proud of it. It's actually designed by some very, very thoughtful mechanical engineers, actually all former Dyson engineers, who build very, very high quality consumer products. I couldn't be more proud of
the fact that they've created something that's really order of magnitude different than anything else.
So what we've found over the years is that the basic training, the practicing of it is really valuable and fantastic. And we notice along the way, though, that people just love the idea of their dog being engaged and enriched at home. As an engineer, I wasn't thinking that initially. It was like, oh my God, of course, if people want their dog to be delighted at home. I was so focused on the technical, like, I can't believe we can train dogs. This is amazing. But there's something really, really fantastic about knowing that there is this helper, there's this being, there's this companion at home whose sole mission it is to engage and enrich your dog, always working. And the ability to use your own voice, ability to use the device, whether you're working from home or away. And actually one of the fun things we noticed, and last year when we were working at home with kind of an early paid user trial, we noticed that the folks at home enjoyed it or used it even more, which was actually counterintuitive. And I think it was the reverse of out of sight, out of mind, but they noticed their dog, whether they were trying to work at their desk, but their dog would always be either looking to play, or they noticed their dog would be anxious in another part of the room. Like, oh, I should start a companion session. And that's exactly what we wanted to have happen, right? Not only can we support you be out of sight, out of mind, because you can schedule sessions to run as you're away from home, constantly engaging your dog. You can also, on an a la carte basis, go into the app and press start. And at the end of the day, as you can see on the screen, these are just fun videos. Like, it's just delightful to see your dog learning, interacting throughout the day. And there's no substitute for that.
You know, since we're at the San Francisco SPCA, I don't know how many times people will hear that I just want to get a dog because it's not fair because I work all the time or I travel. And they don't realize, one, that dogs sleep most of the day. I work at home, so I know that they sleep most of the day. And number two, so that's one thing. But number two, if you know you have something that's a companion, you don't necessarily have to have a pet buddy. Mm-hmm. Although pet buddies, if they do have a pet buddy, they actually live longer and healthier. That's a whole other thing. But they have an additional buddy in this. So you can feel really good about that part, about their learning, they're having enrichment activities, they're moving. Mm-hmm. That's the thing I think I like is it kind of feeds the body and feeds the mind. Like, cool. It's kind of sense in mind.
That's a good way to put it. Okay, cool. And we can go to the next slide. One of the other things that I've really enjoyed being able to start talking about is some of the very early work that we've been doing quietly for the last couple of years with some of the leading health partners in the world that I'm not at liberty to announce most of them right now. But what I can talk about is that we realized we could detect when animals were in pain that pet parents said no, like about 2.5 years ago. And in hindsight, it should have been obvious to us. Like, we knew that this would have health implications and we're really excited about it. But we were starting to see it very, very quickly. And like I said, in hindsight, is somewhat obvious in that we would be working with animals for months. So whether it's with sits and downs, the animal's practicing, and we would notice a variation in how that animal performed that posture. Or the really abrupt one, the first time we noticed it was an animal was doing sits and downs for months and then stopped doing downs one day. We realized, that dog's front shoulders must be in pain. Let's reach out to that parent and make sure the dog is a pain reliever. And then we would see that dog start doing downs again that day. We're like, oh my God, of course we can see this. And I'd say this is almost like a self-diagnostic, the same way that when you turn your key in the car ignition, you see the check engine light pop on. It does that to tell you that it still works. So that if you have an engine problem, that check engine light will come on. Effectively, we're doing that with the dog's body and mind several times a day for 10, 20 minutes at a time to ask your dog to articulate his body, his mind, his joints. And so that we see the subtlest difference of how your dog might position its back, its neck, how your dog might take slightly longer to find the treat because they primarily use sense of hearing at first. We've noticed where some dogs start to lose their sense of hearing. We hope to, at some point, be able to look at subtle variants in animals' appetite, so be able to pick it up very carefully over time. But in the near term, the things that we've actually shown are the things we're most excited about, if you do think they'll make hopefully a huge impact in terms of clinician tools, are one, being able to look at how an animal moves. So what's called gait variance or gait. So specifically looking for variance there because it might help us pick up on osteoarthritis. It might help us pick up on other issues. And then two is what we refer to as BCS, for body condition score. So specifically being able to see if an animal might be underweight, might be overweight. And this is exciting not only on an absolute basis, because there's majority, I think 50%, if I'm not mistaken, of animals.
Actually, I wrote a book called Fitness Unleashed. It's about 65%. It's almost identical to the human obesity rate.
And it's not an aesthetics. It has a huge health impact. In my understanding from people smarter than me on the animal health side, is that it has a massive impact to animals towards end of life. It will really lengthen or shortens lifespan.
I think fat cats and chubby dogs are kind of funny in cartoons, but in real life, they're like little tubby time bombs taking away their health. It's not just joint issues. It's related to heart issues and kidney issues and all sorts of things. The thing I think is interesting is osteoarthritis or joint issues is both underdiagnosed and undertreated dramatically. So for the ones we see, and a lot of people think, oh, the pet's just getting old, and they don't realize that there's things you can do, especially if you catch it early on before you see a lot of joint damage. But there's no way that machine is not going to be able to detect things even before a board of veterinary orthopedist. Well, because of just that perfect learning. So you'll see variances in gait. I joke sometimes that I'm not a very good veterinarian. My wife gets mad at me, but it's the truth. I mean, some veterinarians are very skilled. If you look at equine veterinarians or canine veterinarians, to noticing gait abnormalities, but that is a special skill. And if you've got something and you notice in your dog that's the gait has changed, that is going to be a game changer, because then you can look at the therapeutic joint diets. You can look at the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. There's new things coming out with recombinant DNA and stuff for pets, but it's certainly no substitute for the veterinarian. But typically, most people see the veterinarian once a year, and at the maximum, you're in at the veterinarian in 15 minutes. Yep. That's the maximum. Probably more like 5 minutes, because the veterinary nurse and stuff is in there. So it's going to give us kind of, and put it a different way, eyes and ears, right? Somebody's home all the time.
Yeah. So I'm joined here with a number of really fun colleagues, specifically my colleague Libby, who is one of our managers of animal behavior, along with her dog, Marty, who's going to demonstrate the device for us today. Well, what we're trying to do here is what I call a triple black diamond. We have a young, recent mother of a dog, who is this wonderful dog named Birdie, who just had a litter, who's traveled across the country from Kentucky to help perform a demonstration. I can't wait to see her perform, and I'll turn it over to Libby.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So this is Birdie, and she has been working with Companion for a little while now, but has had quite a few months break as she's been taking maternity leave. But what we're going to show you is actually one of our more advanced games with Companion. This game is called Simon Says. And what it is doing, it's teaching her how to listen for the specific cues. So just like the children's game, it's going to say Simon Says, and then the thing it wants her to do. So I'm going to just go ahead and get this session started, and we will see if she wants to play with Companion. Let's play Simon Says.
Looks like it.
So it starts off with a couple tweets to let her know that the game is starting, just because we want to make it really clear when that session is beginning and when it's ending. And so you can see she's into this. She likes to catch the treats in the air. Simon says, sit. Yes. There we go. And she is also a dog who likes to offer behaviors before Companion asks. And that's actually a really great thing, because what we then are able to do is we are able to reinforce it, but also pair the cue continually. Simon says, dead. There you go. And so now she's being patient and she is waiting. I will say that right now, there we go. It can teach things like duration as well. So we can teach that sit, stay, that down, stay, and things like that. So we really want to work on teaching patience. And with all of this, you can see she is very focused on Companion. She's eating those treats and then keeps coming back. Says, sit. There we go. And she's waiting and she's, yes, there we go, seeing if she has done the correct behavior. And this is really hard for a dog because as most trainers and behaviorists know, as humans, we're giving those dogs all of these sorts of cues. We're looking a certain way. Our hands are moving a certain way when we are asking for a cue. But Companion just says that verbal cue. Yes. And so that was perfect. So she offered that down behavior, not quite right. And so she really had to use those, listening ears and try and figure out, okay, what was I supposed to do there? And Companion rewarded her when she did do the correct behavior. Sit.
Yes.
Perfect. And then I'm going to end this session.
Oh, then training session canceled.
So there, I ended the session. Birdie is a little bummed. So at the end of the session, it does say all done to give the dog that message that, hey, the session is over and you can go take a nap. You can see that she was a little bummed, but she has also since wandered off because she knows what that cue is. And that way they know when a session is starting, when a session is ending, and we're really focused on teaching them all those verbal cues as we go along.
For the avoidance of doubt, to confirm, all of that engagement, all that computer vision, all that AI was done on the device in field. That's one of our new manufacturing units. That's a device running at either close to superhuman speeds or superhuman speeds in terms of recognizing the posture, the movement, even in an alien environment like this office space, which was very different from a normal living room and a home, with a dog that's had relatively dark fur in a challenging environment. To understand what that dog's doing in real time, take a look at a couple frames, both before and after, to see if it's appropriate to reward them based on the behavior, and then engaging automatically with the animal without the support of any other systems around. One of the nice things to highlight there is it's just one camera on the device. It's one sensor. It's everything built in. And the only thing going into the device right now is the power cord. Cool. Well done, Birdie. Well done, Libby. Do we have any questions from the audience? Wailani has a question.
Is that sound when the treat gets is that always that loud?
It's not. That's a pre-production model that has no sound baffling in it, so it's pretty loud.
Okay.
So the really nice thing about these units is we've designed what we think is the world's most advanced treat cannon, like I said, because it's infinitely adjustable in power. If we have time, actually, we can show you maybe outside the video conference, but when we first start working with animals, we can lower the device, both the shot distance and the volume, almost to imperceptible, so that the treat just barely escapes the mouth, and it's like little subtleties go up and up and up as you desensitize the animal to the device. It's also in the same way, that's what we hope to do with things like noise desensitization for other noises in the future, whether it's the sound of truck brakes, whether it's the sound of squealing. The idea of being able to play those noises louder and louder and louder over time while watching for anxiety and cancer conditioning, super fun. And to go back to the directly answer your question, I think that was almost full launch distance for pretty accurate. So it's a pre-production model. That's the model that's about to go to the factory. Yep.
John is an animal lover and a very mediocre trainer. Tell me, and I'm sorry if you covered this already, but tell me about how I would, if I brought Lemmy up here, he's never seen it, I just back off and let the machine do its thing. I don't have to. Tell me about what I would do first time my dog came out.
Oh, I love that. Libby, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole acclimation process. So it's an automated acclimation process, and it starts with just desensitizing them to those noises. So it starts at a level that we can hardly hear at all, to let them know, this is just kind of a sound that happens, and gradually increase it without any stress. So it doesn't launch any treats at that stage. It's purely just mimicking the sounds that companion makes. And then once they are completely confident and comfortable with that, and they've been thoroughly desensitized, then we start with the counter conditioning.
And the camera's watching them to know.
Yes, okay. Exactly. So we can make sure, hey, are they around? And what we actually look for is if they are in what we call the field of view, so can we see them? And if they choose to leave, then that lets us know, hey, let's go back a couple steps. Let's make sure that we are really making this as low stress as possible. And then we start to pair those treats with it once they have been desensitized to the audio sounds of it. Yeah.
So I really don't have to do anything.
Nope.
They get out of the way.
Exactly. And just watch them and basically give them moral support. And just watch them kind of learn to think on their own and how to interact independently.
So we always recommend, as Libby implied with that response, that's a great question. We always, all of this is opt-in. So for the animal. So it's all like, we have to earn the trust of the animal. We have to be excited enough for the animal to come running across the house when the device turns on. And we always, our protocol, what we recommend is we always want to make sure that the animal perceives it has a way to leave the room, to leave the environment where the device is, which is really important to us. And that's part of, honestly, a lot of our effort was working with hundreds of dogs, and what Libby just called acclimation. We also call it more commonly kind of meet and greet or having fun. But the first couple of days of companion are just about having fun, just about getting used to the device. If you'd like to join, we'd love to have you in the room, but we can do it. We can do all the heavy lifting for you if you'd like. I think one of, no, I think I'll leave it there. That's a good question.
Okay.
What's that?
You might come twice.
That's okay. Do we have any other audience questions? Shoot.
Yeah. I think it has some really interesting potential for helping like challenging behaviors, right? Like a dog who is maybe sound sensitive to like other dogs barking in the environment. Like, is there something already or will there be something built in where maybe the companion recognize a dog bark and then start rapid fire retreats?
Oh, you're getting ahead of us.
I think that would be so brilliant.
Brilliant minds think alike.
Yeah.
We have not made any announcements on this front, but we can't help. We can't wait to start talking more about some of the more advanced features that we'd love to launch. They're really nice on Birdie. Oh, yeah. The nice thing about the device is we already updated the device over the year for all the units in the field. So we are constantly adding new protocols. We're constantly adding new modules. And we're lucky to actually, we met a number of our advisors through some people in this room that feed the world of us, specifically folks like Sasha Protopova, who pioneered a way to do anti-bark. I believe she called it anti-bark through positive reinforcement, but essentially using positive reinforcement for longer periods of silence, which takes the patience of the same, which takes advantage of exactly what a computer or machine really good at. And the technology is already out there. And it's not something we would have to pioneer in order to do really good bark detection using the same AI technology. So this device is superhuman. It essentially has the computing power like an iPhone in terms of both AI and regular compute. So we have relatively very high confidence that this device will be able to smartly recognize those noises, which are really key in order to helping with those type of problems.
Cool.
Okay. Great question.
When is your price point going to be at launch?
Cool. So what we were being a little coy, but essentially we want people to think about it as 2 dog walks a month. So if for a $49 reservation, I think now, so we've been offering them for the last 3 or 4 days, and I think the schedule's filled up now. So the next ones you can receive or get are, I think it's May 2024, which is super exciting. That couldn't be more appreciative and support everyone. But it's $49 to reserve one today, and that means that guarantees you, or at least will make best efforts to achieve May 2024 to receive your unit. And then after that, it's very similar to all the other smart hardware out there, like a Tonal or Peloton or something like that, where what you're getting is the device, the software that comes with it, including the consumer app, which we haven't demonstrated here today, but happy to we'll bust that online. In addition to all of the cloud computing, all of the storage and the cloud computing we do outside of your device to ensure that we're tracking how your animal moves over time. We're updating how to interact with your animal. Essentially, what you're really getting is not just a companion at home, not just an ability to interact with that companion. Essentially, for the early users, you're also getting coach support. So someone actually helping you make sure that your animal's having a great time with you would be, in addition to receiving a service that's out there that's constantly engaging, you're constantly looking at how can we give your dog better life.
The first one is
$49 long.
okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
John,
Yes.
that's Marty. I was just thinking of something about dogs that have dental problems.
Yeah.
So often they'll take the food in their mouth and then drop it.
Yeah.
And then, or they'll come up with something and they can see wanting to engage with that, but because it hurts, so they have that, they may be salivating or excited to do it, but they don't eat because of dental issues. Have you ever thought about that? Why is that be something really early? Because before bad breath or something, they can't tell you that this hurts on this side, right? It's pretty interesting how this thing evolves to diagnose dental issues as well.
I couldn't agree more. So we hope to earn the right to get to that level of sophistication. But all of the basic features are there in this hardware already. In the sense that it is a behavior shaping device and superhuman quickness and superhuman consistency. So you can imagine there's a world in which you're able to shape the behavior of coming closer to the device. So the camera has more resolution on the animal's front. You can imagine shaping the behavior for occasionally being able to spend a large amount of time in front of the device. You can pick up infrequent behaviors, or you can watch for very small things around a specific part of the animal's body. we have not had the time to even start looking at those things, but I'm so excited. I can't wait. And it's also that kind of hits at one of the other things that I'm really excited about, which is right now we're only using these behavior shaping protocols to train what are commonly known as kind of basic obedience commands, but sit, stay down, recall, watch, all of those, and duration stays, which are really, really valuable for lots of reasons. We couldn't be more proud of that. We haven't even begun to open the door on shaping behaviors that might be purely valuable from an animal health standpoint. Like from the very fun and like kind of out there, like animal yoga, or to the very, very tactical, like if you want to see how an animal's moving a certain part of its body when it's post-op 2 weeks in the animal's home, can you train or shape the behavior where the animal articulates that part of the body to flex that one specific part a clinician wants to look at? Like we would love to earn the right. We would love to earn the reputation or the right of being an extension of kind of a tool to be used in a consumer's home where the pet is actually most comfortable. And I think there's so many possibilities there, but those are all things that we have not had the time to get to yet, but see a pretty quick path to in the future. Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, the next thing we have up is the fireside chat with two more of our colleagues, which is Mike McFarland, the Chief Veterinary Officer of Zoetis and the Chairman of the Human Animal Quality Research Institute, along with Ken Ramirez, the Chief Training Officer of Karen Pryor, Clicker Academy. Okay, I mentioned I was excited to have Marty before because Marty, we met through this wonderful organization 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago. Marty, in turn, and let me say now that I'm even more excited to be here with 2 additional colleagues. Marty introduced me to 2 fantastic gentlemen over the last number of years as we continue to progress, as we continue to see some of the new things pop up on health and behavior that the device looked to be capable of. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce Mike McFarland, who I think his reputation precedes him, but he's a head of medical at Zoetis, one of the largest animal health firms in the world. He's also, believe the current chairman of the Human Animal Bond Research Institute, and just a pleasure to work with. I'm joined by Mike. I'm also joined by Ken. I think his reputation also precedes him. Ken is the Chief Training Officer and President, please correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, of the Karen Pryor Clicker Academy. I think I'm probably, for a number of us in the room, just a hero when it comes to animal behavior training, and he's had quite a career. We're going to do a little fireside chat, and I thought what might be really fun and kind of authentic to Companion is just hearing from each of these esteemed folks as to how they heard about Companion, what were their original thoughts, what they think about the good and the bad. We hear from some of these who I consider at least to be top readers in the world in their specific subjects. So I think what I'd like to do, I'd love to kick it off and just give each person a little bit of a platform to introduce themselves and, be more humble probably than I just was, or whatever they like to do, but also specifically talk through what, who they are, their background, and what areas do they specifically advise with when it comes to Companion. So for context for the audience. And then Shannon, if you wouldn't mind putting the Zoom up there so we can see them too. Perfect. So I'll turn, because I have Marty right next to me. Let me ask Marty first, if you wouldn't mind giving a little bit of reintroduction for folks just joining, and also a little bit on what areas of Companion you specifically advise on.
Oh, thanks. So I'm Dr. Marty Becker. I guess I'm a veteran veterinarian. So 43 years, 45 years of marriage. Love my wife, love my life, love my profession, love animals. Like McFarland, veterinary medicine is certainly a calling for both of us. Typically 6, 7 years of age want to be a veterinarian. I've been born and raised on a farm and ranch, wanted to be a dairy practitioner from time 6, got to veterinary school at 20, got in early, and in the first half hour, I switched to companion animal. And that's because of the Dean Leo Bustad. So that's a segue to Mike with the Human Animal Bond Research Initiative. He's really the person that coined the term the human animal bond. And it's crazy to switch after 14 years and you switch in 30 minutes, but his talk on the human animal bond was amazing. Cool. And that led to doing Chicken Soup for the Soul books. That led to doing Good Morning America. That led to other TV. That led to other books. That led to a syndicated column. And then most recently, Fear Free, which is an online education company that looks to, we call it taking the pet out of petrified and putting the treat into treatment. So Several 100,000 people have gone through this online training program. Also have a program for shelters, which is really nice here. It's a confident program to all shelters. But I think the expertise I bring to it is, first of all, I'm not a researcher, but I love people that are researchers. It's a scientific driven. So that's what I like about Companion is I think I see the possibilities maybe more than even you do as I start thinking about eventually training a dog to go up and have prolonged eye contact. And it doesn't even take that much to look for an ulcer or blinking or something. We mentioned earlier to have a dog that would pick food out. It maybe it's lunch and then drops it out of its mouth. Very likely that dog has a dental problem. Or it would sit there and salivates and wants it but doesn't want to eat. I just think all these different things, body condition scoring, early detection of arthritis. I did want to say one thing about Ken and Mike before they introduce themselves. Mike and I've served on board together. Mike is brilliant. Mike is the ideal board member. He reads everything, preps. I don't even open the book. Don't even send it to me because I'm not going to look at it. I'm pretty good at helping raise money, but Mike comes from an ER background, and you don't get to be the chief veterinary officer for actually the world's largest animal health company, Zoetis, without being extraordinary. And also, Mike's really had the science and the soul. That's what brings him. It's kind of funny, that bifurcated thing to be the Human Animal Bond Research Initiative. And Ken is like an icon. My daughter is a trainer, so admires him. We have Alexis Devine in the room with the dog Bunny. If you ever watch her on TikTok, this superstar on TikTok, and she was telling me this morning, I live next to Ken, and I'm going to go there and look at this thing. And Ken, I shared your mobile phone number and stuff, so you may be getting a visit, Ken. But Ken has trained every animal you could possibly think of with clicker training. So really, you're really lucky to have people of that caliber, I think, John.
Much because of you too. Yeah. Thank you, Marty. Mike, would you mind making an attempt to follow that intro?
Of course. So I appreciate Marty doing half the work for me, but thank you very much for your kind words, Marty. Again, my name's Mike McFarland, Chief Medical Officer for Zoetis. I've been a veterinarian for not quite as long as Marty, but pretty darn close, over 35 years, getting close to 40. I spent about half my career in emergency critical care. I loved emergency critical care work, but it doesn't always like you back. That nights, weekends, and holidays over the years starts to break you down, especially if you've got a family that you're trying to spend time with at home as well. And eventually got an offer I couldn't refuse from Pfizer Animal Health at the time, which later became Zoetis. And that was to focus primarily on the management of pain and the opportunity to train veterinarians really all over the world about how to do a better job in managing pain, which for someone from Marty and I's generation, there wasn't a whole lot of training. There wasn't really any training in chronic pain management. And so that was a huge joy and an opportunity for me and my career. About 15 years ago or so, I got the chance to start an organization called the Human Animal Bond Research Institute. And what it attempts to do is to build a library of clinically relevant research behind the bond that shows clearly that there is a human health and well-being benefit to pet ownership or to interaction with another animal. And what we've created over time is the world's largest funder of human animal bond research. And we have the largest library in the world of data to support the impact that animals have on positive human health and well-being. And I believe at some point, especially given the recent research we've done with 18,000 pet owners all over the world, that this is becoming now a broadly recognized phenomenon that even the human medical profession is starting to embrace. I first learned about Companion, and the timing was really critical here. I first learned about it in January of 2021, I believe, John. And I don't know if you want us to go into that now. I can take a break here and let Ken introduce himself, but I was going to talk a little bit about that introduction and why it was relevant today.
Let's do it now, and then we'll go. Let's do that, and then we'll go to Ken.
Terrific. So one of the things, if you remember, at that point in time, January of 2021, we were starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as the pandemic was concerned. Things started to relieve a little bit. Some people were starting to travel, at least within the country, a little bit more. And then the profession started to ask a really, really important question, which was, we emptied out the shelters during the pandemic. We have lots and lots. We've got thousands of first-time pet owners. We've got others that bought a second or third pet during that particular time. But more importantly, these are pets that have now been in a household surrounded by their families 24/7 for a couple of years now. What's going to happen when the kids go back to school, when the adults go back to work, et cetera, and those pets are now home alone for several hours every day? And I'd been thinking about that quite a bit. I was a part of a couple of think tanks that were trying to solve for how can we ramp up an educational initiative to quickly inform pet owners what to be aware of. And then John exposed me to this device. And obviously the first thing I thought of was this could be a critical solution to that challenge of separation anxiety as people start to go back to work. You've got a device that can meaningfully engage the pet all day, every day, and enrich that quality of life, even though the pet owner isn't there. I thought it would be something that would be of tremendous benefit to the pet owner. And then, of course, as I always do, once I understood that Companion could do X, Y, and Z, I started thinking about the rest of the alphabet. What are all of the other things that this device might do? And those are the areas that I've been focused on most as an advisor to Companion.
Thank you, sir. Ken, you're up, sir.
Well, thank you again for the invitation. I appreciate being here with all of you. My name is Ken Ramirez, and I am the Chief Training Officer for Karen Pryor Clicker Training. Karen Pryor Clicker Training is one of the leaders in positive reinforcement training. And one of the things that I'm responsible for is managing our overall certification program. I sort of manage the educational initiatives that we put out there every year. I have been training for over 45 years myself. And as Marty suggested, I've trained quite a few different species of animals. So I've had the good fortune to work with a wide variety of animals. And one of the things that we pride ourselves with doing at our organization is helping people train better. We are really focused on educating people about the tools that are available to them and how to use positive reinforcement, which dovetails very nicely into the fear-free movement and the fear-free program that Marty is talking about. And I was first introduced to Companion, gosh, I don't remember when it was, but it's been a while now. And I remember when I first heard about it. I've always been fascinated with artificial intelligence and what it can do. And I'm always interested in ways that I can help manage animals' behavior. And there's often the need to do it remotely or do it when the owner, the pet guardian, is not present. And so I immediately saw the capabilities, and the areas where I have been advising have been with the training team who looks at how to program Companion to do a variety of different things. And as the programming was being developed, there were challenges. How do we figure out how to get better duration, or how do we those decisions that a trainer makes about when to move to the next approximation and how long to stay at one approximation. There isn't a scientific algorithm that has been invented that perfects that particular process, but it's what I know that everyone there at Companion has been trying to do, and I think they've done a really good job at making that a possibility and opening the training doors for what's possible with Companion. And I believe that if it continues to grow in the direction that it's growing, the possibilities are somewhat limitless. I really think it really depends upon the imagination of the people creating it and the imaginations of the users to come up with different applications. And I love the focus that you've put on looking at animal health right now. I think that is a great place to start. But looking at separation anxiety, looking at all of those things, I think are going to be a fascinating direction. And I look forward to talking about them.
Cool. Thanks, Ken. Marty, I'd love to start with you. The first question is, how did you first find out about Companion? what excited about you? And maybe for those coming new to the technology, like what were the questions you had? What were the key kind of areas you were interested in learning more about?
This is not my words, but somebody once said, what has seemed impossible, that if it were possible, would dramatically change the way we something. And been involved with shelter. Matter of fact, I not only switched from being a dairy practitioner to a companion animal practitioner within the first 30 minutes of school, I also volunteered for the People Pet Partnership, the Mass Elderly People with Homeless Pets.
Cool.
So I've been involved with that since I was first starting out. And we know that most pets are relinquished to the shelter because of behavior problems. And we also know that pets shouldn't be born retired, that they have very athletic bodies, and they have minds that we actually live up with wolves. I've seen a wolf within 100 yards of my house. I've seen a black bear on my front steps. I've seen a grizzly bear within 100 feet of my house. So when you watch these wolves and coyotes eat, it takes memory and skill and manipulation and, detect your prey, pursue it, apprehend it, kill it, compete with the pack, and finally get up to eat. So how do you do something that feeds the body and feeds the mind? So that, I think, for me was, and my daughter's a trainer, and Karen Pryor told me that Mikkel has really good timing. And I'm not quite sure what that means with clicker training, but I think I know. But I'm thinking of something with machine learning that has perfect timing. And then I think of teaching the basic commands, sit, stay, calm, the emergency commands, and then the diagnostic parts. It just intrigued me. And I've never lent my name to a product. You can't go out there. There is a Dr. Marty and there is a Dr. Becker, and neither one of them are me. So they both sell dog foods, and commercial foods cause cancer. So it seems like somebody either ends up with a pet food company or CBD company, right, and sells themselves out. But I'm just looking at the greater good that this can do. So I could see a shelter dog or a new puppy coming out and living a different life. Healthy, happy enrichment.
Yep.
And so zoos do a better job of enrichment than most people do in their homes. And I think Lonnie's son, the board of behaviorists over there, is shaking her head yes. By the way, we wrote a book together called From Fearful to Fear Free. So she's the smartest person in the room here. But I think it's an exciting time, Lonnie, for you to, as a board of behaviors, to be able to see behaviors at home that you could actually, because I always tell them, use your camera, right? Take some pictures. So what if that was a lot of data, right? Compared to a lot of other dogs. So I could go on. I probably sound like I'm fanning here, but
we love it.
Just as somebody that I still practice, and I've actually now prescribed this product. When I wrote a book called The Healing Power of Pets, notice I name dropped this stuff in here.
You're good at it.
I wrote it with a New York Times reporter, and I still remember Ed Cregan, who was the CEO of the Mayo Clinic, quadruple boarded at Mayo, used to head oncology, internal medicine, palliative care, and I can't remember the fourth one. This guy's a genius. And he was the first guy I've seen that had prescribed pets on a prescription pad in mass. 200-300 times he had prescribed a pet on a prescription pad for people, because he knew if they, and this kind of goes to Mike McFarland stuff, that if they had cancer, it gave them something to go home to. And so I've actually looked at this for something that for now and in the future that I feel is as vital as Zoetis' Apoquel, which I talk about all the time for skin issues. If you got a dog that's got skin issues this spring, talk to your veterinarian about Apoquel or Cytopoint. I see it like that, or a specific food recommendation.
Yep.
That we had to talk about that at the LA Pet Expo. But I'm not a big fan of super premium foods. I'll just throw that out there. That's the biggest waste of money in pet care, is feeding these crazy foods, unless your dog to take an expensive bowel movement. It doesn't really do anything. But take that money that you're going to spend on, I'm not going to mention a name, and put it towards this product, and then you've got something that's going to help your dog.
Thanks, sir. Mike, same question for you, which is, what did you first think about Companion? Kind of what excited you about it? And then probably as interestingly or more, like, what were the questions you had? What were the things you really wanted to understand as you dove deeper?
The first time, we talked about it was, as I said, at the very beginning of that sort of return to normalcy after the global pandemic. And I immediately saw the potential applications for things like separation anxiety at home. But I think the thing that fascinated me the most was the application of machine learning in the small animal space. We're seeing machine learning being applied to animal health with greater and greater frequency. A lot of it's been done on the livestock side of animal health right now, where sometimes you have relatively few resources, you're very remote. One veterinarian might be responsible for a couple of dozen different farms or ranches. But with machine learning, you can quickly identify an animal in the same pen with 100 other animals that is behaving abnormally. And then you can potentially separate that animal from the herd super fast before it has a chance to spread anything that's infectious in nature to the rest of the herd. And so it's a very simple application of machine learning that's becoming more and more precise, more and more advanced as the years go by. And I think it's just a matter of time before it's broadly used in the small animal space as well. It's being used in human health, obviously. So what I get super excited about is getting pet owners used to having that capability, that technology in their home, having their pets engage with that technology, creating a database, a very extensive database of normal behaviors, and then being able to track those behaviors exquisitely over time. Because I can't think of any disease, I can't think of any abnormal behavior, whatever the case may be, that doesn't eventually show up as some sort of physical manifestation early on, whether it's a runny nose or a mild lameness or weight loss or cloudy eyes or itching and scratching, a change in water consumption, a change in feed consumption. These are all behaviors that we can pick up with the naked eye, but machine learning can do it faster and better. And so could we develop a device that's in the pet owner's home 24/7 that could be eyes in the back of the head of their family veterinarian and can tell when something has changed and warrants an additional investigation? That ability to project or predict when something may go wrong is invaluable. And I think that's where the in-state value of companion lies, is the ability to do those sorts of things.
Thank you, sir. Ken, same question to you, which is kind of what first excited you about the technology? What were the questions in your mind? So I know you were excited about AI. I think we are all kind of curious about how AI will affect our individual industries. But even beyond that, what were the things that with Companion you wanted to make sure the company was doing right in order to be kind of right for animals?
When I first hear about AI, I'm always a little skeptical, just because I'm a skeptic at heart. I like asking questions and making sure that that whoever's inventing whatever it is they're inventing is thinking about it appropriately. But I quickly recognized that the Companion team had some very skilled participants. On the technical side, I know nothing about, but it's clear that they do. But they also have really good skills on the training side. And the Companion team was already asking good questions and making sure that the dog was going to be reinforced well, that it was going to be done in a positive way, that there wasn't going to be any kind of aversive tools that were being used. That's always one of the first things that I look for, because I want the pet's experience to be a good one and to be a positive one. But something that Mike just mentioned was something that caught my attention right away, was the way the camera is built into the device and watches the movement. There are so many things that one of the first things that I always ask people when they tell me they have a behavioral problem is, have you checked with your vet? Because so often behavioral problems start with physical problems, pain, discomfort, etc. And while most guardians say, oh, I would notice changes in my pet, the reality is often lameness, blindness, deafness, things of that kind come on gradually. And because they come on gradually, when you're with the dog every day, you often don't notice it until it becomes very pronounced. And so being able to see those things early before they're truly a major problem can be a real benefit in improving their health and improving behavior, improving a lot of things. And so I think there's a real benefit to having a device like this that can help detect things early. And I like that. And the timing of the device, there's no question. We always work hard with our trainers to tell them the importance of timing when training. But our bodies, our minds can only react so fast. And the fact that a machine can do it faster and be more accurate ultimately is a real beneficial thing that can only help us when we apply the technology properly.
Hey, John, can I give a mea culpa here? When I was early, and so I've been a veterinarian for 43 years. Mm-hmm. And maybe the third year I was a veterinarian, we had a miniature schnauzer that I didn't know went blind until we had a piece of prime rib, I think it was, that had a nice odor, little smell. And I was holding it up and the dog was snapping in the air. So here's a veterinarian in their own home, didn't realize their dog had gone blind. Yeah, because they'd not learned to navigate everything and everything that was familiar.
Yeah, and it happens. It can happen slowly. It can happen. I think we would all benefit from having an extra set of perfectly consistent. I think we'd all value that.
And would you notice if your dog was all of a sudden itching in one spot? What I noticed if it was saying, it'd probably just be background noise if they're itching on something like they do sometimes. That's the thing. Yeah.
So Marty, what impacts do you think companion or devices like it will have on the industry and for individual pet parents?
I think for pet parents, we all feel guilty. We don't have more time with them to train them, to play with them. Dogs love to have a job to do. I watch my daughter's a trainer. My wife's pet massage therapist, and the dogs love getting massage every night. I get nothing. 45 years of marriage, John. Not one thing. And the dogs get massaged every night. But they love to do their training, but it's hit or miss. Probably every 2 weeks, Treats will do something, decide in the morning to do it. But if they were able to work for their food, I can't remember the behaviorist that said learn to earn. It's not my term. Somebody early on, Mr. Campbell, I think, talked about learn to earn. But they want a job to do. Yeah, so I think that's really good. They learn to earn, feeds the body, feeds the mind. I like that there's variation of feed a little of what you're going to feed them or feed a lot. I think I'm going to tend towards feeding a lot of the stuff to them. And the enrichment piece is so important that we let them, they have a genetic exuberance to do things and let them express this genetic exuberance. So not just free of fear, anxiety, and stress like we do with Fear Free, not just the health of regular veterinary exams and proper parasite control and good nutrition. And then the possibilities of diagnostics in the home at real time. Yeah, we literally, and depends on who you listen to. Let's just say 30-40% of vets don't even have veterinary. So this is going to be something that I noticed you use it like 2 dog walks per day. Mm-hmm. And where I live, nobody has a dog walker. So we might think of a different analogy. Everybody uses so many Starbucks or something. That's pretty, if you think about somebody that does enrichment activities and play, stay, and am I okay? That's a pretty good value if you think about that. So,
well, I love that actually. The way we think about it is for the folks out there who maybe treat their dog to a day of day boarding or a month of day boarding when they're at work, which is can be $50 a day, it can be $1,000 a month, whether it's a dog walker, whether it's $50 a walk or $50 a week for the dog walker, companion for hundreds of hours of individual practicing training, of individual play sessions at home, and to also have the knowledge that you're building up this repository of health information is the same price, just a couple instances, like a couple dog walks a month.
Even North Idaho, the 2 dogs we have, the 2 small dogs, we $75 a day, even in Northern Idaho. So.
Yeah. And so companion, you can get it for a month for less than that.
Yeah.
I love that answer. And so, Mike, so the same question to you, which is what impacts do you think it will companion or devices like it might have on the individual pet parent, and also because especially from your perch at the top of the animal health industry, what changes do you foresee happening as a result of these types of devices in the health industry itself?
I'm looking forward to this question and have thought about it quite a bit. When it gets right down to it, veterinary medicine gets compared on a very regular basis to human pediatric medicine, and for sort of the right intuitive reasons. Our patients can't communicate directly to us. We struggle to communicate with them, and there is a third person involved in those discussions where it's the parent of the child or the pet parent of the dog or cat that we're seeing in the exam room. And what we realize over time as we get more and more experienced as veterinarians, and we've been exposed to 1,000 different scenarios, is we start to pick up on little signs that can lead us to at least a tentative diagnosis of what might be going on. That combined with the patient history that's recorded by the pet parent. But it's always imperfect information, because when I'm observing those behaviors, I'm observing them in the veterinary practice where the animal is potentially nervous, maybe even fearful. Unless they've been through extensive fear-free training, that may be a regular thing that pets in that practice might experience. And that's going to change behaviors. There's no getting around it. And so the opportunity to have those eyes at home so that we can see how the pet normally behaves in a completely relaxed environment when it's not nervous at all, when it's in a place that has always meant sort of a comfortable refuge from the rest of the world, that is invaluable. And aside from just asking a pet owner to use their phone and videotape the dog walking up and down the stairs, it's kind of difficult for us to get that kind of information in our own medical database on a regular basis. And so I think for the pet owner, it's going to be that comfort of knowing that any early signs of illness or meaningful changes in behavior are going to get picked up by this device. And at some point, maybe communicated directly to the veterinarian. And between the pet owner, companion, and the veterinarian, understand what's happening with your pet far earlier than we ever could in the past. And I think it was mentioned earlier that the earlier you diagnose a condition, the more successful you're likely to be in treating that condition. Certainly behavioral issues, that is absolutely important. But in a variety of medical conditions, like osteoarthritis, for example, the earlier you diagnose it, the more you can potentially interfere with the development of that disease. By the time a dog has had extensive hip dysplasia and can barely walk, it's too late really to back up any of that. We can relieve inflammation, we can relieve some pain, but we're not really going to change the course of the disease through physical therapy and things like that. So I think it's absolutely critical to be successful in what we do for a living, to diagnose early and to begin treatment as effective treatment as quickly as possible in the course of the disease. And a device like Companion, I think, is going to help us get there.
Can I add a little bit to that, please? So first, pets age faster than people. The first year, let's just take a dog or a cat. The first year is about 18 years. They're full adult size and they're sexually mature. So small dogs a little earlier than that, bigger dogs a little bit later than a year, but let's just use that as an average. Mm-hmm. And then every year after for dogs is about 3 human years. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't want for yourself or for your son or my granddaughter to go every 3 years to there. Number 2, humans have a healthcare team of many.
Yep.
A dentist. My wife just went to the dentist. She just went to the optometrist. She got thrown off her horse. She's going to go get imaging and go to her primary care physician, probably get referred. There's gynecologists. There's allergists. My granddaughter's having seizures. Going to a neurologist. Yep. So there's all these people looking at your health. Pets have a healthcare team of 1.
Yep.
And that healthcare team of 1 may see them 15 minutes a year.
Yep.
Or not see them. So they can't tell you where it hurts. They got a healthcare team of 1. They age faster. And number 4 is really critically important. By nature, they hide their illnesses or injuries. There's a saying, again, it's not mine, sick as supper. And so it's worse in some species, but they don't. That's what Mike was talking about. And the sayings to look at cattle and see that one early on it's funny how all these animals get preyed upon. So what if you could detect that subtleness early, and especially in the comfort of their home? Because one of the things we find out from Fear Free is pets will be lame at home, or you touch them and they cry out. But when they have so much cortisol and fight or flight response, when they come in, they don't limp. You can touch them, you can manipulate their joints, nothing happens. This is interesting. It's kind of Doc in a box in a way, in a good way.
Yeah, I think at our best, at our highest aspiration, we would love to be an extension of the clinician's hands.
Amen.
Yeah. So and so Ken, on the behavior side, I'd be really curious. I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but in terms of how it might change an industry, when my wife and I, Michelle, were adopting our dog Boomer, the Beagle on Companion's website, we went through training classes, and I ended up being a volunteer here. But I'm really curious for, we went from group training classes to kind of, cold turkey in terms of professional trainers or getting kind of trainer support. I'd be really curious, for a device like Companion, what type of impact do you think it'll have on how we train, on how we practice, on how easy it is for pet parents to do the homework? How could you see the different outcomes of how it affects the training and behavior industry for devices like this to become accessible to pet parents?
I think it could change the industry in a lot of very positive ways. I know the skeptical trainer gets fearful of, oh my goodness, they're developing a device that's going to replace me. But I don't think that's the case. Just like the device is not intended to replace the veterinarian either. It's just able to provide additional diagnostic information. And I think the Companion's not going to be running alongside the dog in an agility competition. I suppose someday it could, but why would you want it to? The whole purpose of agility is for you and your dog to do something together. So I don't think that's Companion's niche, is not to replace those opportunities for us to have great interactions with our pets. Those will still exist. But from a training perspective, we run into the same problems that the veterinary community runs into, where we have dog problems and the pet guardian wants answers and wants solutions. And so often, so much of when their dog is misbehaving or doing unwanted behavior is when they're away at work, when they're away doing other things. And so the pet companion becomes a useful tool for trainers to use to say, here's some ways that we can look at behavior and watch behavior and potentially adapt behavior when you are away at work, when you're at the grocery store, when you're not able to be with your dog. And maybe even in another way that I think could be really beneficial is the kind of enrichment opportunities that something like Companion can offer, because so often, even when we're in our homes, we find ourselves stuck to the computer and we're not able to interact with our dogs. And so the Companion device can be programmed to do a variety of different things to engage the dog and keep the dog active. And so I think there are a lot of ways that gives us possibilities that we just didn't have before. So often we're saying, gosh, if you could just be at home a couple of times, and that's why we pay dog walkers, and that's why we do all these other things, is you may still want a dog walker, but what I'm suggesting is there are benefits that a device like this can really augment training. I don't think it takes away from what professional trainers or veterinarians do. I think it just gives an additional tool that really makes a lot of things possible.
I love that. I was hoping, I hadn't asked you that before, and I was hoping you would say that. I think that's what we would aspire to, which is we want to make it easier. We want to make it easier to be a phenomenal pet parent. And that's what we're saying, whether that's what training, but giving you that helping hand that in a busy life, you have kids, your work, you have a family, you want to give the best possible care in life to this little furry creature, your loved one. And that's what the device is designed to do.
I want to say a little bit more. So I'm a veterinarian.
Yep.
So I can replace a veterinarian.
Yep.
It's just going to help the veterinarian.
Yep.
And I think my daughter Mikkel's a trainer, and she's done through Karen Pryor and got other letters behind her name. I can see, we've talked about this, I can see Mikkel doing certain behaviors, and then she gets to monitor how well that pet is doing at home. So now she has other information before she goes back for other training sessions. And not everybody can have Mike McFarland in their house, or Ken Ramirez, or Alexis Devine over here. She's got a dog that can actually probably tell you when her left hip hurts. If you look at Bunny on TikTok, but there's only one Alexis, I think, right? So maybe for the rest of us, we can catch up. But one thing that I notice you're careful of, you're not over promising. You're under promising. And I happen to know some of the companies that are invested in this. I know the individuals behind there, and that you want data. That's the thing. You want data and research. You're a ex-Google person. All these guys in San Francisco always have Arc'teryx and stuff like here. See, I'm in the Carhartt shirt. But you're a tech guy. You are.
And I think that there's two things we want to try to do, which is one, be as transparent as we possibly can about what we think we can do now, what we think we can do in the future, both because we always want to be on the side of delighting people and meeting and kind of exceeding their expectations. But two, I think we also want to be really direct and honest about our intention, which is we never will be. So I'll directly contradict you just for the sake of make this point is we will never be a doctor in a box. Like we at our highest aspiration, we will be a tool for clinicians. And that's not a disappointment to us. That is something we would aspire to be, because these are the folks who actually have the human connection that then can ensure the animal gets the care. I think it's the same thing with a really great behavior. It's the same thing with a really great trainer. We would love to be viewed by them as an extension. What I meant to say in kind of the last comment with response to Ken was, and that's what I'd love to make it easier for a professional trainer to look fantastic, because companions helping do the homework with the pet parent helping. So it's not only does your dog, if you're lucky enough to have one-on-one training, if you're lucky enough to have one-on-one behavioral consulting, I'd love it if behavior consultants and trainers viewed our device as an asset that could then give them kind of some homework at home and help the parent with it. So let me go back around the other way, just kind of the last round or two here, which is, so Ken, if you were talking to a pet parent, if you were talking to a group of pet parents, when do you think, what would you counsel them in terms of looking at a device like Companion? Like, where are their animals like? What types of problems? What types of problems do you think it might help with? Also, what types of benefits might they receive, and kind of where might it be most beneficial for pet parents in their dog stage of life?
I always tell people with pets that they should look into training advice early on. I mean, from a dog being a puppy all the way through the various stages of their life, that animal is learning. Dogs are learning 24 hours a day. They're always learning, whether you're purposely teaching them or not. And so with a device like this, I would say whenever they feel like they are ready to really start focusing on behavior, and my recommendation is you should start focusing on behavior right from the start. There is no particular point where when this occurs, that's when you should get the help. I think people should get training help really, really early on. Just like when you have a healthy, perfectly healthy dog, we don't go, well, don't go to the vet until you need to. You really encourage people to go to the veterinarian on a regular basis just to get good checkups and make sure that they are in good health. We need to be monitoring behavior all the time and make sure that they are not developing unwanted or bad behaviors. So I would really encourage people to look for professional trainers, look for devices that can help right from the very start. And I think the Companion works best when you have a professional trainer working along with you. So,
Mike, from a health perspective, or if you're talking with pet parents trying to describe what the Companion does, how would you describe how a pet parent might fit Companion into their animal's life, especially in the context of animal health and wellness?
Especially in a world where people are going back to work and they're leaving home and leaving their pet alone for a few hours every day. It's the comfort of knowing that there's a device that's going to be monitoring normal behaviors while you're out, and it's going to be engaging your pet, enriching that experience at home, even when the pet owner's not there. So that all by itself, I think, is a significant value and justifies the investment in having Companion in your home day one. But in addition to that, whether you're home or not, having a device that's just inherently more sensitive to changes in behavior, changes in body conformation, things like that, than the human eye is necessarily going to be, especially an untrained human eye.
Yep.
So to have a device like that that might sort of figuratively raise its hands and say, this is different than what we've seen before. You probably should talk to your veterinarian about this. It could be an early warning of some type. And look, we've been doing this a long time, Marty and I, and we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of clients over the years. And those most successful outcomes are usually coming from the highly engaged pet owner that came to us soon so that we had a working chance to resolve the issue, but also had a partner at home that was going to help us treat and fully resolve the challenge. And I think investing in a device like this that helps augment what the pet owner can do at home and provides positive reinforcement for the pet owner as well, when they've done something right, like identify an illness far earlier than they otherwise would have been able to in the past.
I wish I was as articulate as Mike.
Really? Now you're on the spot. Okay, so
I want to add one thing though. Mm-hmm. I noticed. See, you're California. You got a. That's not a wedding ring. I don't think
it's not. That's the wedding ring. This is an Aura ring, which tracks biometrics.
Okay, and then you got the smartwatch, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we have the same thing in animals.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is their functionality is limited, and I think somewhere around 80% of them are put in the drawer after 3 months.
Yeah.
So we have a product called Tractive on our dogs. I have a commercial relationship with it, but a phenomenal GPS tracking thing. We live up in the mountains of northern Idaho. And someday there might be some interaction between a wearable or something. But the fact is, if they're in the drawer, it's not going to be good.
Yeah. And so I actually think, just to build on that comment, we're lucky enough that some of our early colleagues, actually even some of our board members, have been founders of some of those collar companies, and they're fantastic, especially if you have a dog that was missing, or for some of the looking at health, like kind of violent scratching, those collars can pick it up. But there's natural differences between what you could pick up with one accelerometer on one place on an animal's body that's can shake with the skin ring, versus being able to pick up tens of thousands of individual points every 20th of a second for hours a day.
One of the things that Mike hinted at, compliance is such a big issue. I still practice as a veterinarian after all these years, 43 years, and had one the other day. I was talking about an ear problem, and I said, I'm going to recommend this. They go, oh, what's the habit from last time? And that was 2-3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people feel if they can't get the medicine in or on the pet, they feel embarrassed or guilty, so it goes up in the drawer for the cover. So what I'm excited about too is if we're treating an ear problem, I want to see that thing resolved. Yeah. And the pet stops digging at its ear, or if it's having seasonal allergies, oh my gosh, that apple called side point. And Mike, I'm not throwing in this as a advertorial pitosoatus, but it was one of those products that was just a game changer. I mean, like a light switch, getting these pets that had suffered for years. But I want to see maybe they stop using it. And the dog starts to suddenly itch this time of year. So I think that compliance issue is going to be, it's just so easy for pet parents to forget about it if it comes back subtly. And if it starts coming back, then we can catch it real early on, I know that's in the future to download into the practice management software or something, but maybe someday, huh?
I think that there'd be a very natural connection between having this large database of information on your animal and wanting to make sure that clinicians had access to it for sure. And there's a wide variety of ways to do that. And I think the other side of saying compliance, the other side of knowing if the pet parent's kind of administering the medication, is this, the other side of that sword is the benefit of being able to show the pet parent efficacy. So like we would love to be able to show we'd love to be able to show the parent that it's working, right? Like that not just are they kind of putting the black box medication into their animal and kind of hoping to see the animal recover over a period of time, but actually showing them day by day. You know what, the pollen at the ear went down 10% over the last 3 days, went down 20%. over the last 3 days, because everyone, we all know that there's behavioral economics. We all know that there's incentives. We all know that we react to signals given to us. And I know personally as a vet parent, like I react really well to knowing what's working, what's not working. And I love to see data on what's helping, what's not helping.
I think you're part of a different generation. I have a daughter that's your age and a son that's a few years, 4 years younger, but you guys are so data driven that you want to see, you want to get positive, like Ken talks about positive rewards, and you want to get positive rewards and know what you're doing is having a benefit. Right?
Yeah, totally. And I think like empowering people with information on this loved one. I think that is one of the things I'm most excited about. Like I think the start of this talk overall was kind of one of the kind of basic premises of the company, which is understanding inherently drives empathy. I view data the very same way. So like if you have more data, if you have more understanding of your dog, you have more empathy for that creature. So we're on the last round of questions here. I think you and I were talking earlier about kind of the irony of you are set up in a dog paradise. You have a dog masseuse in your partner. Yeah. You are a nationally, internationally known veterinarian. You have all the tools to give your dog an amazing life. Why in God's name would you need a companion?
And my daughter's a well-known dog trainer.
Yep.
Why would I need one? I also have pet insurance, by the way.
Yep.
Can I throw in a little
please
pet insurance?
Yeah.
Why would I have pet insurance when I don't own a veterinary hospital anymore, but I work as an associate veterinarian, so veterinary medicine would be pretty relatively expensive. You have there's procedures in veterinary medicine now that can be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000.
Yep.
And my sister's a physician. Veterinary medicine is the greatest value, but it's still it's money that comes out of pocket, right? I never want to be at the point where I can't recommend the highest level of care for even my own pet. So I'll give back to that pet what a portion of what is given back to me. But what I see is, let's take as a veterinarian. I can see it helping me be a better veterinarian through the diagnostic parts of it. Mm-hmm. I can see my daughter, Mikkel, who's trained our dogs to, Ken, we have a new Pomeranian puppy named Quimby. It's like having a 3-year-old with ADHD and a chainsaw in her house. Am I ever lucky that I should be calling you? No, Mikkel's done a great job. I told somebody the other day, we took her in to get an ovary sparing hysterectomy. So this is sterilization. She got a puppy. She's not going to bleed, but she kept her ovaries. And I told the people I can't work on my own animals. I don't know if you can, Mike. I do not want to touch my own animals. And I told them, this Pomeranian doesn't bark. And they go, really? And I go, oh, heck no. It's like crazy. But it will help Mikkel do a better job, the training she does with us with that dog. Yep. It's not going to massage the dog. Yep. But we get busy. I think Mike and Ken both mentioned this earlier. I'm one of those people that just tend to sit on the computer. Yep. And my wife's exercising like crazy. And I love something that could interact with that dog. And also, we use food puzzles or food dispensing devices, but this takes it to a different level. Yep. So they actually have to work and engage with the thing. I think it's Ken, who was it that said learn to earn? I can't remember. Was that Campbell?
Was that Ken?
No, I think it was.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't me.
But somebody said that's great where they have to engage with something. Feeds the body, feeds the mind.
Yeah. And so just a couple minutes left here, Mike. Is there anything left unsaid that you'd love to inject into this discussion or question even you might want to ask some of these other colleagues? Any final thoughts?
I'm very excited about the future. I'm a lover of technology, but as I have evolved into the role that I am now as a sort of an international spokesperson for the veterinary profession, I've traveled to about a dozen countries on 5 continents in the last 7-8 months. And I'm starting to hear the challenges that veterinarians have in different parts of the world where they don't have access to the incredible technology that we have, in the US or Western Europe. Their access to the different medicines may be different. Their access to training may be, light years different than what we experience in the US and Western Europe. And I think technology, especially technology that is approachable, not something that you're going to have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on, but an approachable technology that could be set up and working well in any house it's technology like this that I get really excited about, because access to care as you move around the world is dramatically different than what we take for granted in the US. So I think it's things like this that keep me really, really excited about the future of the veterinary profession. And I appreciate being a part of it.
Very cool. We're very, very lucky to have you, Mike. Ken, same question, which is kind of any party thoughts or party questions for myself, for Marty, for Mike, anything else you'd love for the audience to understand about your view on companion?
No, I sort of echo what Mike just said. I am excited about the future and what it could do. I think there's a lot of different prospective ways in which a device like this could be used. And I think the more people become aware of it, there are far more intelligent people than me out there. They'll think of creative ways of putting something like this to use that will blow me out of the water. But I just think that the possibilities are really, really good. And so I think you've started at a great place, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Ken or Mike, you're curious what tanning products I'm using?
Not in the least, Marty.
Few questions.
Oh, great. And there's some questions from the audience. Perfect.
Got two.
All right.
So question for Ken. How are pet owners thinking about enrichment or not, and what needs to change there, if anything, to improve the lives of dogs?
Well, I think that's a great question. And the reason it's a great question is I think that people forget that animals naturally on their own would occupy their lives in many ways. You know, if the dog was still a wild animal, it would have to hunt for food. It would have to escape predation. It would have a lot of things on its mind. And thankfully, we take care of all of that for our pets. We give them their food but what happens is animals get bored so easily. It's the reason why there are so many destructive pets out there, because they're looking for something to do. So I don't think that enrichment is as common in the pet world as I wish that it was. I really would love to see more enrichment out there, different ways of keeping the dog's mind occupied, their body doing things. And so I think that's why I think the companion is a great tool that could help with that. But I'm always pushing hard for people to think more about ways to enrich the lives of their animals, because their minds are working and they need things to do. I think Marty said it earlier, they need a job. They are designed to be doing things, and we sort of take all of their normal jobs away from them. And there are exceptions. There are livestock guarding dogs and herding dogs and others that are working all the time, and they are very enriched. But a lot of our pets aren't. And so I think that it's a really important topic.
I think for every guard dog, there's 1,000 lard dogs.
You're right.
One more question. It sounds wonderful, like an intelligent switch organized of the automated pet feeder. My question, so far, what is the most successful use of the product as it stands today? And have you seen any issues of pets offering a behavior to the machine in an obsessive nature?
Great question. So I think what we have offered to consumers in these last couple of years of kind of closed testing is what we think of as the leading message that we want everyone to be aware of, which is this device's sole mission is to give your dog a delightful life day in, day out. And so I think the best application, the one we've tested, like starting 3 or 4 years ago, and then ended up with paid trials over this last year, 18 months, is just giving the dog and the pet parent sheer delight. All of these other things come from that sheer delight, which is, so the core product is engagement, and we engage through training. We can understand the health implications because we get to see the movements from training. But it all comes from engagement. It all comes from the idea of enriching your dog and the convenience of your own home in a way that is visually delightful, as you saw earlier in the demo. In terms of obsessive behaviors, like absolutely. So one of the one of the things that is really important to us is being very, very thoughtful about how we interact with animals, which is why we're couldn't be more excited to have folks like Marty or folks like Ken or folks like Mike, because these are the gentlemen that represent like different almost layers or schools of thought on the right way to work with animals. But in short, the most important thing for us is making sure, like a handful of basic ideas, which is the animal is it's always opt-in. The animal always perceives an ability to leave the environment. And also that we monitor each animal's progress very granularly. Like with companion, you have either a companion coach or some of the companion software along for every step of the journey to monitor this. And it's something where we have not seen at any CL, but the minute we saw anything like that we have all the tools to look for it and make sure it does not happen again.
The reason I'm smiling, Burry's working the room. Burry's working the room, finding people to pet and maybe a treat.
And so I think some of the answer to that question, as well as was included in the demo, either applied or directly, but things like having the ending cue. So the dog knows when the device is available for play. So there's not a situation where the dog would stick around and kind of hang out for the next 20, 30, 60 minutes, not knowing if the device was on or not. But there's all these little touches we put in over time to make sure that the way the device approaches the dog is as thoughtful as can be. And also gets back to the point around one of the things we find most compelling is that we're able to channel all of this animal expertise into each and every session. It's not just, it's not one off, it's the same thought that goes into every single interaction with the animal.
This is the point in the interview where I rush a couple things in at the end. I learned this through media training. So I would love if you could check out fearfreehappyhomes.com. It's, I know we kind of got a nice little partnership with Companion and Fear Free, but it is complimentary. It's not the stuff you're going to look for an itchy dog or a lame cat or something, but it's about the emotional well-being. A lot of stuff about enrichment, but we're coming up on thunderstorm season. Yeah. Not that far off from 4th of July. So whether it's noise phobia, separation anxiety, all that stuff, and there's probably the best on the planet. So fearfreehappyhomes.com. And also Fluent Pet. So there's somebody in the room who Alexis Divine as part of Fluent Pet. And that's another enrichment activity where dogs can actually communicate with you and meet you at a richer, deeper level. So I have no commercial interest in that. So this is, I just really believe anything with enrichment activities, whether it's, we have barn cats and we hide their food around those Lego blocks of hazel. You have to hunt. You'd be proud of that, Ken. Even the barn cats have to hunt for food, but just to watch their bodies move and their minds move, where they're looking and searching and digging. Oh, it's just amazing.
That's super fun. I do think there's actually really fun possibilities between some of these products, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine automating an animal interacting with some of Fluent Pet's products and using Companion, those sorts of things. Yeah. But anyway, we're running a little bit over time. Ken, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Marty, thanks for flying up. Marty and I are doing a tour of the West Coast right now. LA a couple days ago. Today, San Francisco, tonight, Seattle. We're doing a road show. Thank you for all the folks in the audience. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for asking the questions. If I could convince you to do anything else, check out joincompanion.com. That's where you can sign up for a reservation, at least as of this morning. I think the next shipping date was May of 24. And look forward to
Mikel ordered one. I ordered one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ordered one too.
You better hurry up before all that stuff gets sold out.
Thanks again, guys. Thanks so much.
All done.